Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Financially Empowered Women virtual event. We are so happy to see you all again. And we hope you had a wonderful holiday season and that you're starting the new year off with at least a few of your goals aimed at your finances. My name is Megan, and I'm the podcast producer here at Whitecoat, as well as your host for all of these few events. And today we're going to be talking a little less about the specifics of finance and more about how to balance the 1 billion things we all have to do or want to do in a way that feels good and true and sustainable. As women, it can be so difficult to find that balance between being the wife, mother, sister, friend, provider, and even most importantly, just the self that we want to be. And then add on top of that, being the best at our careers that we can be, it can be difficult. There is so much unspoken pressure on women to do it all and to be everything for everyone all of the time. So tonight, we hope that we can start you down the path of first identifying your unique work-life balance, what that is, and then give you the tools and the confidence and perhaps even the permission for those of us that need that sometimes to start making the changes necessary to better align your life with that balance. But before we turn the time over to Dr. Dawn Baker, we first want to remind you about our next two upcoming events. We over here at the WCI team are so excited for WCICon. It's just a few weeks away, and we cannot wait to meet as many of you in person as possible. So that's our next event. On February 7th at 6 p.m., we are going to be having a few happy hour. This event will be just what it sounds like. No speakers, no presentations. This is just an opportunity to meet and to get to know each other as people. And you'll even get the chance to meet Dawn, tonight's amazing speaker. She's one of our presenters at WCICon. We will be having some fun swag to give away to everybody. Of course, we'll have some great drinks and most importantly, great conversations with amazing people. So for those of you that are joining us there, you can get all the info that you need about where to find us and all of those details in your event app. And just on a personal note, if you are there, please come and introduce yourself to me and to all of the other staff members. Tell us you're part of the FEW group. We are just super excited to get to know you in person. And for those of you who can't make that, we don't want you to miss out. So you can still join us. You can join WCICon virtually. If you are here in this group, we know that you want to take control both of your finances and your overall wellness. There is so much amazing content that will help you with all of that. So if you can't join us in person, but you want to learn from all the amazing presenters, definitely consider a virtual ticket. It qualifies for CME. You can buy it with your CME money. And we want to make that even more accessible for all of you. So we are giving you $100 off that ticket now through January 22nd. So you just go to WCIEvents.com, put in the code virtual at checkout and save yourself some money. It's super easy. So we hope that all of you will join us, whether it's in person or virtual, and we can't wait to see you there. Okay, after that, our next live virtual event will be on April 25th at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time. Joanna Turner is a CPA and a CFP, and she's going to be educating us all on taxes. Since this is our first presentation on taxes, we are going to try to keep this a little bit more of a 101 level education. Taxes are complicated. There is no way around it. Tax code in our country is not for the faint of heart. So we hope that this presentation can really help to increase your understanding and your comfort with taxes. Okay, so the other thing we want to make sure that you all know about is our newsletter. And we hope you all got that in December. On months when we don't have an event, we will be sending out a newsletter as a way to kind of keep in touch and continue to provide you with useful educational information. So keep an eye out for that. So let's get on with it. Okay, so just like last time, after Dawn's presentation, we are going to do a Q&A. So please throw your questions into the chat whenever you think of something, and we will collect them and read them to Dawn after her presentation so she can do her best to answer all of those for you. Dr. Dawn Baker is a physician, writer, speaker, and lifestyle design coach. She helps physicians and other professionals step off the treadmill of achievement, rediscover their true selves, and cultivate a practice of balance that's right for them. She is the author of Lean Out, a professional woman's guide to finding authentic work-life balance. Dawn is also a certified yoga and meditation instructor who is passionate about off-grid living, homeschooling, fitness, and travel. On a personal note, for me, I just have to say that from where I sit, this is a woman that has really figured it all out. She is someone who truly practices what she preaches. She has an unmatched gift for connecting and relating to people. And every time I have heard her speak, I feel inspired and hopeful and motivated. So I'm super happy that all of you get to enjoy her gifts as well. So let's just go ahead and turn the time over to her.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was such a nice introduction. Wow. So, this is going to be a talk that raises quite a few questions, and I'm hoping that it will really make you think. I'm going to make it a little bit interactive, so occasionally I'll ask you to throw some things in the chat box, and because of that, I want to make sure that I'm open down here. Yeah, okay. And what we're going to be working on is focusing on figuring out what is balance, trying to come up with a definition, discuss why it's so hard and why it might be challenging for you and what might be holding you back. We're going to look at ways that you can design your own work-life balance that's right, specifically for you. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about a key mindset shift that you need in order to go through this process. So let's start with defining balance. I would love it if anyone would like to throw in the chat words that come to their mind as they think about balance, or maybe imagery, concepts, terms, anything that you can think of. A lot of people think about the scales, the legal scales. Does it exist? I love that. A seesaw, that's another one. I see the word harmony. I see less stress, not having so much stress, ease, calm. People think of someone juggling when they think of balance as well. So sometimes the word balance can conjure up negative imagery, and sometimes for people it conjures up very positive things. I also see the word tenuous there in the chat. It's difficult to define. It's this very nebulous term, and in that sense, it draws judgment and sometimes criticism from others. You'll hear balance is a construct, balance is a myth, balance is not something that we can have. But I still like to use the term, and I just have some caveats with it. What is really important to understand about balance is that it's very highly individual. So your particular work-life balance is not going to look like mine or anybody else's. And it's also very relative. It's constantly changing based on what is going on in your life, and whatever circumstances are there, you're going to have a different kind of a balance, and it's going to have to kind of reflow into something else. And that isn't something that ever there has an endpoint. And I really like the orchestra analogy, which is why I have this image here on the screen. How that goes is that we all have so many different roles in our lives, especially as women. We're mothers, wives, daughters, sisters. We have other identities. We have work identities. We have identities such as like athlete or artist, things that we're interested in. We have whatever our profession is, whatever our specialty is, if we're all in the medical profession. And all of those different roles are things that are represented by different instruments in a symphony. So you can imagine that when a symphony is playing, there are times where most of the instruments are playing all at once and they're complementing each other. But then at certain times, one instrument is playing and everybody else is resting. And then sometimes there might be some supporting instruments that are playing a harmony in the background. So that's how our work-life balance shifts as things change in our lives. But you can't have every single role playing at full volume all the time. And so things ebb and flow, roles rest, roles come to the forefront as time goes on. That's how I like to think about balance. And your balance is not going to look like my balance. I throw these pictures into this slide to show you some of the homes that I have lived in. Now, this may not look like a fun life to you if you don't really love adventuring, rock climbing, camping, hiking, but those are things that have been a very core part of my life and are at the heart of my personal values. And I went into medicine from engineering, actually, thinking that this core value of needing freedom, needing more time freedom, needing location freedom, loving adventure was very important to me. And in engineering, I saw kind of a dead end. If you get pegged into a certain kind of an area, just like there's medical specialties, there are specialties in engineering, like you work in petrochemicals or you work in biotech. You can only live in very specific places. For instance, if you're in petrochemicals, you're only going to live in like Texas or Louisiana. And I said, I don't think I really want to do that. And I was really getting into a lot of traveling as a young adult. And I realized that I wanted to do something more service oriented that I could do in any place on the globe. And that is why I went into medicine. Only as I got along in my training, I got hung up and I forgot about the real purpose and the reason that I went into the field. It took a cancer diagnosis, a real health scare for me to regain that vision and realize that I needed to work toward the things that I really valued in my life, which were like what I said, the time freedom, the location freedom, and things like that. So, do you know what's most important to you? Do you know what values might be at the heart of what you want your work life balance to look like? Not everybody wants to do an out of the box thing like what I do, which is now I do locum tenens, anesthesiology. I live rurally. I do still travel and I do wellness work, advocacy work, and speaking and things like what I'm doing right now. Not everybody wants that kind of thing, but maybe you don't even know what you want at all. So that's why we're here today. And since this is a finance group, I wanted to talk about what balance has to do with finance. Well, White Coat Investor put it well in this tweet. Sometimes people mistakenly assume wealth is only financial, but it is not. Wealth is time, money, and relationships. It's so much more than just the money that we accumulate. And if you're not healthy physically or emotionally enough to enjoy the wealth and the things that you've worked so hard for, what does it even matter? That's why we're talking about work-life balance. So let's think about reasons that we do work. So I can assume that almost everybody here is not in a position where they were born into feeling completely financially free, feeling a sense of complete financial security. So the things that come to mind at first are security and money. But I'd love it if you could throw in the chat some other reasons that you might be doing your job. I have a few examples and I'm going to throw them up. And if anybody agrees with these, they can then reiterate them in the chat as well. So the first two, okay, purposeful, good. I have sense of purpose again. First two are money and security. Stimulation, someone said in the chat. So opportunities for your children to maybe have something or a lifestyle that you didn't have. To give back to my home country was listed. So that was what I was getting at when I wrote legacy. Some people are very invested in leaving a legacy in their field and giving back in a way, contributing something. There's challenge, purpose, accomplishment for personal growth. It's rewarding to help others, to cultivate a sense of community and to have community with your coworkers. Let's see. What else did I say? I said something to do. I mean, on a very base level, it's something to pass our time with. that is different than just leisure time. And also, someone wrote health insurance. So you may have some sense of obligation that you're working for. You may be working to fund the life of another family member. You may be working because you need the health insurance. There are lots of reasons that we might have obligations to also be making money. Those are great for my kids. Excellent. Okay. But as humans, so we crave all of these senses of security, senses of certainty, and also achievement gives us a sense of purpose. But achievement is a double-edged sword because it can become rote and it can also become a handcuff, something that traps us in a work situation that isn't very sustainable. And yet, at the same time, um, contributes to our identity in a very strong way, so that it's very difficult to separate. There's a great quote by Gretchen Rubin, who is the happiness expert, and then she also she wrote the book The Happiness Project and a few other books, and then she's also a lawyer. She said the race to become a partner in a law firm is like eating. Let's see, what does she say? It's like winning a pie contest when the prize is more pie. So when we work and we achieve and we do really good work, we also get rewarded with more work. And that can become this treadmill that also we adapt to in the same way that we have hedonic adaptation with spending. And I'm sure you've heard that term before when we talk about, spending and making sure that you're mindful with your money. So think about, are you on the treadmill of achievement? Do you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you would really like to make a change, but you can't get off that treadmill for whatever reason? And some things that can help you to know are examining unwritten rules that you're living by. So they might be holding you back. And examples of unwritten rules are here on this page. To be a good blank, I must blank. So you can fill this in with so many different roles that you have. And then things that have come up in your life that you're following that aren't necessarily rules that are written anywhere, but they're things that you've adapted. So, like, to be a good doctor, I must push my patients first. If I am a good professional or if I'm a good partner in this group, I have to be out the door by 5 p.m. So it can be something that's really tangible and very detailed, the rule, or it can be something a little more abstract. So after this talk, one thing that would be a very good exercise to do would be to write down any rules that you can think of and then ask where they come from. What is the origin of this rule? Did this rule come from me, or did it come from a culture that I'm in, a work culture or a culture of growing up, a family, anything like that? And figure out, number one, if this rule is true. And also, number two, if this rule is something that is serving you and something that you want to be living by. Is it a rule that maybe you need to consider breaking? And here's a concrete example of a rule that a lot of us know about, the rule that is unwritten of like what a doctor should look like. Oftentimes people have this picture in their head, not us, but like people, just lay people have a picture in their head of the doctor looks like a white guy with white hair in a white coat. But we all know that this is different because I know I have been accused of being a nurse, a secretary, a cafeteria worker, a staff member, something like that. People don't always know what a doctor looks like. But a doctor can look like this. A doctor can have a life of travel, can have a life of living on a homestead and doing projects. Those are my middle pictures there. And then also a life of doing anesthesia. Because I have this kind of life, I also have a picture of myself there on the lower left corner, speaking at the most previous white coat investor conference. Does this lifestyle make me any less of a doctor? I don't think so. Does anybody know anything when I go to a locum assignment about my board status? Is it any of their business? No, it's not. there are, if you do any kind of locums, anybody who's in the audience, and you know that in locums, oftentimes people are there because they choose to be there, but they can also be there because they need to be there because they just are not able to get their board certification, or they're board eligible. They can't keep a job in a practice because of a certain personality type or something like that. It doesn't matter what anybody at work thinks of me. I've just moved beyond that. And yet I do at the same time get questions from people every time I go do a locums assignment. Doc, what's your other job? And I'm like, this is my job. This is my only job. I just do this kind of work. People are always like, where else do you work? But this is it. So does that make me less of a doctor? No, I would argue that it does not. Okay, so other things that might be holding you back are certain types of thought patterns. And this is where outside resources like having a support group such as this, listening to talks such as this, looking at self-help books, hiring a coach, getting in a support group or a group therapy or hiring a therapist can really help you to shine a light on thoughts that are not serving you as well. And an example would be all or nothing thinking. I see this so often, and it is that I want something different, but if I do not look exactly like the vision of what a particular, my particular specialty is, or my particular medical profession niche is, if I do not have the perfect golden picture of that, and I am not fulfilling all of those roles, then I need to quit medicine altogether. That is all or nothing thinking, and that is absolutely untrue. And then the other thing I often see is the sunk cost fallacy, where people say, I have invested so much money and I have invested so much time into doing this job. I cannot leave this job. I have to stay. And then everything in between: worry, fear, guilt, shame, worrying about what people are going to think of you when you decide to ask for something different, and also doubting that you can do something different. Of course, we've all done hard things, but we forget about that and we develop imposter syndrome. And then also just confusion about what you want. So now that we know that work-life balance is highly individual and it's constantly evolving, how can we start to find a work-life balance that is unique to us? So I have now been coaching people in this realm. I've started a podcast where I interview people who talk about their own unique work-life balance. And I've written a book on this subject and given talks on this subject. And the thing that I have noticed, a common theme among everyone that I interact with, is that confidence. Confidence is the key. It's the thing that the people who are walking the walk have. And it's the thing that the people who want better work-life balance want to get. And so these are the foundations of confidence that I have identified in my work. First of all, you need to know yourself. And that means learning about yourself, being compassionate for yourself, loving yourself, and also trusting yourself and trusting that you know what you need. Then practicing what is called emotional agility. And this is a term from psychologist Susan David that really means that as we flow along the river of life, that emotions are like waves and we can ride those waves. We can surf the waves, and emotions are just data and they are not going to hurt us. We are never going to die from experiencing negative or difficult emotions. And knowing that is part of confidence. Then practicing doing hard things so that you embrace an air of challenge in your life so that you can take on more abstract challenges and bigger challenges is important. And lastly, giving yourself permission to take the journey of leaning out, doing something unique in work-life balance, or just something different. So we start with self-knowledge. Who are you? I can tell you for sure that you are not the part of you that is tied to form. And it's difficult because we all have a real sense of ego. And I don't mean in a sense of arrogance, but we're all very tied to our identities. But you truly are not your roles. You're not your identities. You're not your thoughts. You're not the things that you feel and you think, and you're not your physical forms. You're not what you look like. You're not your brown hair. You're not how tall you are, what size you are, or anything like that. What you truly are is a being that is worthy of love, worthy of the things that you want, worthy of living the kind of life that is going to make you fulfilled. And the things that make up this you are things that are related to tendencies. And some of them are more immutable, and some of them are more kind of can change as you grow and as you mature and as you go through life stages. So tendencies such as how introverted or extroverted you are. And we can all kind of morph and be a little bit of one way or another, but most of us are immutably one or the other. That can really go to figuring out how you can gain energy in your life daily on a daily basis and how you get energy drained from you. So that's a way to start figuring out how you want your days to look. And then also, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And these are perceived by you and then also by others. So you can inquire. You can look at lists, and I have resources that I will give you at the end of this talk for figuring out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you can always ask trusted mentors and friends and family members what they think and be open to their feedback about that. What are your core values? That is a very, very key piece of self-knowledge information. And they can help you to guide decisions and guide boundaries that you might want to place on your work-life balance. So this is just a list. I would love if some people can throw in the chat their favorite word that they see on this list. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just some core values. And again, there will be a resource at the end where you can figure out more. You can do kind of like a more thorough exercise in figuring them out. So I'm seeing frugality, integrity. If you know one that isn't on the list that you really care about, list that. Someone said moral, family, efficiency. I love that. We're all into efficient, and someone else said efficiency, integrity. Those are great. Mine are health, adventure, learning, and challenge. And they are what I try to live my life by. I see faith from Katie, protection. One of my recent coaching clients, her big one is security. And so that is a very important part of making sure that as she navigates a work-life balance transition, that she still remain financially secure and that her family is okay. And there's many different members of the family that are very important to her. So great. I love these. And we can work on these more, on the side. I'll tell you a little bit more at the end about a very thorough exercise that you can do. So knowing your values is very important, but also knowing what you want is important. And this is a journey in itself. So many women who have put themselves second, third, fourth, last in their family and in their community don't even know what they want. So you may be one of these people. You may be saying, I want a change in my work-life balance, and this is unsustainable what I'm doing, but I don't know exactly what it is that I want. Now, you don't need to know exactly, but I would highly suggest that you start a wants journal. You can take a journal or even just a piece of paper, or you can dictate into your dictation system. You can write on your phone notes. Just practice voicing your wants on a daily basis. And they can be specific. Like one day you can write down, I want my procedure that I'm performing this morning to go well. Or I want my child to get to school on time. So it can be something that specific. And then it could also be something more abstract. You can work in wants like, I want peace. I want quiet. I want harmony. Things like that. It doesn't matter how specific they are. Just practice actually saying it, because a lot of us have kept these quiet for a long time. One piece of inspiration that I'd like to throw up on the screen here for you are the top 5 regrets of the dying as an inspiration for what you might want. You are probably familiar with these. A lot of people have seen these. They've been around, published in a book maybe around 10 years ago by a hospice nurse. And the number one is, I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard is another one. Think, when you're on your deathbed, is anyone going to be saying, oh, she worked so many hours? I remember when she didn't take that vacation and she filled in for somebody. Is that going to be a regret for you, that you worked harder than you needed to? I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings, to stay in touch with friends and make connections. And then also, I wish that I had let myself be happier. I had given myself permission. So I'd like to do a visualization. This is just 1 to 2 minutes. I have listed 2 here on the screen that you can do. If you would like to participate now, that's great. If you just want to listen to me talk and then recreate this at home later, that's okay. We're going to do visualize your ideal workday, but also I would encourage you to do your ideal day off from work at home. And also think about how many of those days, like what do you want the ratio to be of work days and days off? Because that's also part of visualizing this work-life balance. So, all right, first sit comfortably in your seat with your back straight if you can. Nothing, you're not sitting on your foot. You're not in an uncomfortable position that's going to bother you and take your mind away from this visualization. And then if you're willing, you can close your eyes. I can't see any of you, so it doesn't matter if you close them or not close them. Focus on your breath for a few moments and take an inhale and an exhale. And then think about your ideal workday. We're not going to focus on your role, but more on your environment and your actions and your associated feelings. So first, imagine that you're waking up before work. What time is it? What is the first thing that you do in the morning? Are you enjoying coffee? Are you going to a gym to exercise? Are you spending time alone, or are you with family members or someone in your household? And then what time are you leaving for work? So when you leave for work, are you driving? Are you biking? Are you walking? Are you walking outside, or are you walking from one room to another because you have a home-based job? And how long does your commute take? And now imagine that you're at work. And what kinds of things are you doing? Are you working with your hands? Are you solving problems? Are you working on a computer? Is your work more solitary? Or are you working with a team? And maybe there's some combination of all of this. And that's something that matters to you. And who are you interacting with? Who is on that team that you're working with? And also, just in general, what's the environment? Are you in a big building? Is it a hospital? Maybe it's even something totally different, like a medical device factory. Or are you in a clinic? Are you in a hospital office? Or are you in a home office? And how do you feel about the work that you're doing? What kind of a sense does it give you as you do this ideal work? So now it's the end of your workday. And what time is it? It's very important. What time is it at the end of your ideal workday? And then what do you do after work? So imagine undoing your commute. And what activities are you participating in? Do you go straight home? Do you make dinner? Is dinner made for you? Or do you stop off at the gym or go do an errand, a visit with somebody, pick up your children from school? And is anyone with you on any of the activities that you're doing after work? And then as you wind down your day, think about your feelings and how do you feel? And take another deep breath in and out. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay, excellent. So I would encourage you to do that again as many times as you need for an ideal workday, but also for your day off. And think about the blend of the two as well. And how many work days would you really like in your life and how many days off? Practice embracing challenge as a way in low stakes situations to gain confidence to make the moves that you need to get a better work life balance. So, we all are capable of doing hard things. We have gone through medical training, professional training, and we have done difficult things in the past, high achievements to get to that place. But have you rested recently? Have you spent time alone? How about done a regular mindfulness practice? Those are things that are very difficult for people that have high octane go, go, go jobs. So consider a 30-day challenge of incorporating something like that into your life and then reflect on that and see what you've grown from that. Practice saying no. And that can be in low stakes environments like just, no, I'm not going to do the laundry today, or making decisions. A lot of us outsource our decisions and our boundaries to others. So practice making a decision of what you're going to eat that day or where you're going to go if it's a day off. Learn something new, take up a new skill. That is always great for confidence. Asking for help is something we already talked about, different outlets for that. And then I want to focus on some challenges that you can do that are financially related, since this is a financial group. So I have live on less there. Many people that I've talked to on my podcast and in coaching situations, they have done the hard things of looking at their finances and discussing them with the stakeholder members of their family. And so that is something that I would challenge you to do. Track your spending and look at it honestly without judgment, and then have those conversations. Have a family financial meeting. What do we really need to live on? Where can we cut if we had to? Where should we cut right now? Could we make one extra payment off of a debt or do a sprint to fund an emergency savings? You will gain confidence if you have an emergency fund, or you know that you can weather a period of financial uncertainty if you want to do something unique with your work-life balance. And then consider going without a particular expense or a buy nothing period as a challenge as well to shore up your confidence. This is something I really want to revisit because I'm noticing that Amazon is at my house like every single day right now. And that should not be that case. So I need to revisit this particular challenge myself. And these are things that you can do off and on throughout the year. So redefining success is also part of knowing your own work-life balance. And typically, the ways that people in this country define success are money, power, status, or money, power, fame. But I would like to offer a pie as a way to define success for you, and then fill in the different pieces of the pie. They're going to be different sizes, most likely. These are just examples that I threw up that are things that are important to me that I think are success. So like health is a very big component for me. I'm very into fitness. I'm very into being outdoors and into being able to do physical works because I have a homestead. So I want to be able to do those things. And I care a lot about my physical health. I care about my time freedom. I don't care so much about achievements. I'm a locum tenens doctor. I don't care about having a title or having publications behind my name or tenure. That's just me. Maybe you do care about that because you have a very great value of wanting to leave a legacy in your field, for example. Financial security, relationships, all of those things can be parts of your pie. And expect that when you take a journey and you take the reins of your own work-life balance, that you are going to encounter some haters. Some people are going to be inspired and they're going to be vocal about that inspiration. Some people are going to be inspired and going to be quiet. Then you'll have people who are threatened and who are quiet. And lastly, you will have people who are threatened and who make it known in some way, shape, or form. And that might be not in the way of saying, I really don't like what you're doing. I find it uncomfortable. I can't imagine doing it. But it's something else like, I don't know how you can do that. I think you're making a big mistake. That's irresponsible, or something like that. If you say want to leave a particular role that isn't serving you, maybe you're holding too many roles at work and you want to step down. If you're doing that, it may feel like you're stepping away from leadership, but in my opinion, you're actually stepping up to authentic leadership because you are showing other people how it's done to be an advocate for yourself. So remember that when people, as you go along with asking for your own work-life balance, when people might give you a side eye or be a little obstructionist. Lastly, the mindset shift that you need. The thing is, balance is not something to be achieved. Achievement is a word that should not go with balance, in my opinion, because balance is a constant process. So you need to embrace it as a journey and not as a destination. It is cyclical, and we are the hero in our own hero's journey cycle. As we get back to home and then we feel a sense of homeostasis, some other life circumstance changes, and all of a sudden, the work-life balance goes a little bit out of whack again, and then we have to recalibrate. We have to explore. We have to figure out what we want and how we can change it. And then we go back to homeostasis. That is the cycle of how things work. So remembering that and remembering the age-old quote, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, is very important. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about this topic. I'm very passionate about it. As you can tell, I love it. And here are some resources for you. So if you have my book, or if you buy my book, this section in the back called resources is also listed on this private web page. So I'm giving everybody the page, regardless of if you have the book in Kindle version, or if you, that's where people who have the e-reader go to this first bullet point here to get the resources. But everyone here is welcome to go and look for the exercises there, the links to other self-knowledge resources that I recommend, other books that I recommend besides the ones that I have listed here, and ways that you can cultivate community. Now, if you do go to my website, practicebalance.com, and you sign up for emails, which I only send 1 or 2 emails a month, but you can get delivered to you in an instant download a worksheet for finding your core values. So if you liked looking at the values list today and you would like to do that more and find your 3 to 5 words that you can base your decisions on and your boundaries on, I highly recommend you go and get that today. And then here are some books and podcasts that I recommend, of course, my own, and then some other names of books. And for the podcasts, these are just a few. I love podcasts. There are so many, but if you're interested in taking a sabbatical or a mini retirement, check out that last one, Jillian Johnsrud. I'm in one of her episodes talking about multiple mini retirements. And then Dare to Dream Physician talks about travel, but also people doing unusual things. And I really like Ordinary Sherpa for ordinary family adventures, and Wanderlust that's very approachable, that can help you to dream about things that you might want to do that are outside of work that you haven't thought about in a long time. Again, thank you so much. And I would love to take any questions that have come up. And you can contact me through my website or just email this email right here, and I'd be happy to hear from you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again. That was so wonderful. You gave us so many incredible things to think about and to start moving towards, which I really love. Things as simple as like learning to say no, learning to rest, taking the time to figure out what it is that we really want. At my house, we've made a lot of pretty huge changes over the last few years, including moving states, and both my husband and I starting new careers, all in hopes that we could find this elusive balance that we hear people talking about. And well, those changes were not easy. Honestly, I actually think the harder changes for me have been the ones that I referenced above, like learning to say no, for example. Little personal story. I literally told a friend no a few nights ago and to go to an event because I was just too tired. I knew my body needed to rest. And this is historically not something that I have done or been good at. And it's something I'm working on. And having to tell this person no almost gave me a heart attack. It was ridiculous. I survived. I'm happy to report. But this is just a silly non-consequential story. But the impact of knowing what I needed and then asking for it was profound. And these little changes, or whether they're big, like knowing what, big changes like moving, or smaller changes like just knowing when you need a break, the impact on my happiness and my well-being is hard to overstate.
I love that you're recognizing it.
Yeah.
Because you need to celebrate when you do those little things like that.
Yeah. And it's just amazing how they feel really big. Yeah. So I think just encouraging everyone who's listening to do little steps, start the journal. I love that idea. Just small things that can actually feel pretty monumental. So thank you, Dawn. That was wonderful. Exactly what I needed to hear. Let's jump into Q&As. Katie Dolly is going to help lead that. I don't know if anybody posted anything specifically. Oh, I see at least one. So we'll start there. And everyone listening, if you have questions, start throwing them out. Concerns, things that you struggle with, whatever it is, start throwing them out. And Katie and Dawn are going to tackle that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dawn. That was a great presentation. We'll start off here with a question from Paula. It says, do you find that that unhappiness scale is correlated to distance from the ideal workday?
I don't think that I have enough data to say yes or no on that question. The reason that I like to do the visualization of ideal workdays with coaching clients is because oftentimes when people come to me, they know that they want something different, but they just don't really know exactly what they want. I see it so frequently. And it's not that you have to know exactly, it's just that they haven't really thought through like, what kind of things do they want to be spending their day doing? And so on top of doing an ideal workday visualization, you can also just do like a time audit. And I mean, my hunch is that it will affect your happiness level if you at least do an audit and figure out how far away you are from where you want to be. But I don't really know that there's necessarily a direct correlation there per se.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry, I just dropped my how do you live your authentic life when people are asking you to take on new responsibilities?
Yeah. So I think that it starts with, like I mentioned in the talk, knowing yourself and knowing your values and what really matters to you most, and then trying to say yes and no to those responsibilities based on what your values are. And some values and priorities kind of overlap, but a priority I would think is a little more transitory. It can change with the times, and a value is more something that is long held and that is with you for a longer term. So if you want to use values or priorities, I would definitely say look to those as you're trying to figure out if you want to say yes or no. And also consequences. And there are consequences of saying yes, and there's consequences of saying no. So you can list out both of those and do an exercise of that and try to figure out, do I want to take on this new responsibility?
Excellent. I love that. Um, a quote here that you had in your book, it's by Maya Angelou, and it says, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. How do you help uh, people you work with that you coach redefine what success is in their life?
Well, I think it goes back to, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it goes back to learning more about yourself. And so taking those steps to either spend time doing, if you need to do an assessment or a guided journal to help you to learn more about yourself and what you really value and what you really want and really care about in life, then go ahead and do those. And I have examples that I help people to do. And then sometimes that's not really the right thing for the person. And really, it's that the person that comes to me needs more just initial alone time. They need time in stillness. And they haven't been spending that time at all for a long period of time. They've just been like, they're at work, they're go, they're doing their procedures, they're so busy and they're in reactive mode. And then they go home and they're like in reactive mode at home. And so they don't ever take time for reflection. They don't take time to just sit in stillness, to have a mindfulness practice of any sort. And it doesn't have to look like you're meditating and you're a monk. It just can be like, I took a walk today by myself, or I drank my coffee in quiet and I savored every taste and every bit of steam that went into my nose. I mean, it can be something that easy. So those are the two things I would say is like self-knowledge assessments. And I can help people if you want to have a list, look at that resources page, like I said, or just start with spending some time alone, spending some time by yourself.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, question from Sarah. She says, Monday is my first day back to work after maternity leave. I'm scared and anxious. How do I present my new identity at my existing job?
Hmm. So, new identity of being a mother, I
Yes.
assume she's
Yeah, I would
talking
agree.
about. Yeah. Um, well, I think you, so at work, you want to be authentic in the sense that you want to interact with others in a way that shows the things that you value and the things that you care about. But at the same time, part of being in a professional environment is knowing when to share things and when not to share things. So when you go to work, you do your job just like you always do. You make sure that you're doing your job with integrity and you're showing up for that role in your job. And then when there are opportunities to share, if there's community there that you care about, that you want to share with your other roles, your new roles, then you share those. I'm unapologetic about my roles and about the things that I care about. And I like to talk to people at my work about those things, like about, for instance, like being a homesteader. Some people are like, what? I don't understand that. But some people are fascinated by it. Yet I don't like just go start talking about it without someone asking me. So it's something that I think has to come out naturally and authentically. And it's something that you care about deeply. So I think it will.
Excellent. All right. A question from Sally. It says, how do you advise the conflict experience between one, what I visualize and what I want? And what is required of being a single mom supporting 3 kids? There's a conflict there between her life of bliss and her responsibilities.
Yeah, right. Okay. So visualizing your ideal, the ideal is one thing and reality is something else. And there's present reality and there's like moving toward the ideal. It's kind of like work-life balance where there's not this one particular place that you're necessarily going to. It's nice to dream the ideal workday, but there are lots of constraints on the ideal workday. And maybe that day is not something that you're ever going to necessarily reach, but you can take steps to get toward that. It's what helps you to figure out the things that you care about and the things that matter to you. And then maybe you make one step. You make that one in the journey. It's all a journey. You make that one move like, all right, I need to have more uh, rest time during my days. So I'm going to see one less patient or something like that. I mean, I'm just throwing out an example that maybe is totally unrealistic, but there's some aspect to your workday now that is far away from the ideal day, but that could get one step closer to that ideal day and just go in that, kind of like in that stepwise fashion.
Excellent. A question from Jessica. It says, "How do you deal with workplace bullying?" And I think also, as you've talked about, when you had mentioned, some people you're gonna have some naysayers when you start to live your authentic life and say, you know what, I'm not going to take that on because that doesn't work with my values or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, bullying, I think different people have a different definition of like, is this really toxic bullying? Is this something that is really impairing your ability to work? Because if that is, then you should probably be getting someone else involved, like a third party at work involved. There's toxicity, and then there's people being haters. I have not personally experienced any sort of big toxic situation where I had to go and get like human resources involved or something like that. And I know people have. But what I have experienced is just people making backhanded comments or people not understanding, people saying like, oh yeah, well, she's just like a shift worker now, or so I do anesthesiology, so I know some of the people that I've worked with like in a prior group, they just think like, oh, she's kind of like a glorified CRNA, and they say things like that, but they wouldn't say like exactly that, um and not that there's anything wrong with that job, it's just that I have this other identity that isn't that. And so I have learned over time, and I think that it's helpful when you have experienced something that really puts you in a vulnerable state of life or death, like I have, where I was just in this health situation where I said, I really am going to focus on myself and I do not care what other people think of me at this point. Like I had to be a patient in front of my colleagues. That will take away your worries about what other people think. Now, how do you do it if you don't have that kind of a lightning bolt situation? That's what I do help people do when I have coached people before, is letting go of what others think. And the way that you do that is by cultivating your own confidence, by learning more about yourself and by recognizing your strengths and looking at the things that you have done that are difficult, and then taking on new challenges, even though they're really small, like doing a 30-day challenge, one of the examples that I mentioned, and that will up your confidence. And then reflecting on those things and writing them down and realizing the things that you have done will help you to not care so much about what those other haters say.
Excellent. What resources do you have for somebody that's trying to craft a career that's a little bit more flexible or permits even remote work? In this case, dentistry, but even in some different specialties.
Well, I would say that a really good resource I have found personally and I recommend to people is our Facebook groups. Now, because you're dentistry, I don't know the particular groups, but I am sure they exist, just like they exist for women physicians. There are tons. There are women physicians Facebook groups for every single specialty. There's women physicians that have become stay-at-home moms. There's women physicians that have gone into non-clinical careers. There's not one that specifically says remote, but I mean, maybe there is, like, and I just don't know about it and it's not searchable. So I would search on Facebook, most people are on it. So, I'm assuming that you have a Facebook account, and search for groups for women dentists. And then there are going to be secret groups. So you can, if you get in like a big one, you can ask other people as you meet some people in that group about if there are any groups that are related to remote work. And then also just deriving inspiration from listening to podcasts like Lean Out, where I have people on there that are doing something unique. There might be one in dentistry. I know that one of the keynote speakers at the White Coat Investor Conference coming up in 2024 is a dentist by trade and has done a lot of work in wellness and medical professional wellness. And she has a podcast. So you may want to look at that. Her name is Taryn McCarthy. So I don't remember the name of her podcast, but I would look up that. I think that gaining inspiration to know that people have done it before you is very helpful in navigating the uncertainty of that kind of a change.
Excellent. Okay, last question before we go to breakout groups for discussion. It says employers are not accommodative of work schedules for women leaders. Any suggestions to deal with such situations?
Yeah. So, I titled my book Lean Out because in Lean In, that book by Sheryl Sandberg, she says people need to lean in at the boardroom and take these leadership positions, because once they get in those leadership positions, they're going to be the ones that make the changes to the policies. And yet here is someone who's in a leadership position and is saying it's really difficult to make the changes to the policies. I think that's true. And so what I feel like is, we can wait for the systems to change, or we can try to change them on our own. And you could be the one to say, I'm going to do this other thing over here, and I'm going to make this alternative schedule. Or you can ask for it, and you can, ask whoever it is that is above you and say, this is what I want to do. I mean, what is the worst case scenario? They are not going to fire you for asking for something, but you are showing leadership by doing that and by being the one to be the example. So if it doesn't exist where you are, see what you can do to get it for yourself, and then other people will follow.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see. We have one more thing we want to do. We want to make sure that you all know the women behind the few who are all contributing to making this community possible. So we want to continue to introduce ourselves to you, our staff members to you, each time that we meet together here, and then also in our newsletter. So tonight we're going to just take a couple minutes really quickly to introduce you to Michelle. She is our community liaison and the lady who keeps our few Facebook page running, among many other things. So we're going to turn the time over to her for just a minute.
Hi, ladies. I am Michelle, and I have been with White Coat Investor since 2018. I'm the community liaison and also do all the social media. By training, I'm actually a physical therapist, and I have 4 kids, and I like to adventure and do all sorts of fun things like that. So the flexibility of the White Coat Investor is a perfect fit for my life. I am the admin of the White Coat Investors Facebook group, which a lot of you are members of. It's like 90 something thousand people. And I'm also the admin of the Few Facebook group. And I just wanted to invite all of you to join that Facebook group and really engage in the discussions in there, because it's a great opportunity for us to get to know each other outside of these events that we're doing 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. Right now, we have probably 40% of the people who have registered for the Few that have actually joined the Facebook group. So if you have any problems joining it, you can always email me, Michelle at White Coat Investor, and I am on top of it every day. So just let me know, and we hope to see you in there.
What Michelle didn't tell you is that she's also Jim's big sister and can give him more crap than anybody on staff, which is always a good time. So that's fun too. Okay. Our very last item of business is our giveaway. We are going to give away 2 $35 gift cards to the WCI store. If you want to enter that, head over to the Facebook group or the Facebook page and answer the prompt that Michelle has posted. The question that we're going to have you answer is, what is one change you will implement to bring your own unique work-life balance a little closer to reality? If you do not have Facebook or you haven't joined that group yet, you can also just email your answer to us at few@whitecoatinvestor.com, and we will make sure to get you entered in that as well. And we will draw that. We didn't really decide that. Let's say end of day tomorrow. So hop in there and get that taken care of. Okay, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. We are absolutely loving the way that this community is growing. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for inviting your friends, for bringing both your questions and your wisdom to help all of us grow. We can't wait to meet as many of you as possible in just a few weeks in Orlando. Again, please come introduce yourself. Okay, we're going to move into our breakout groups now. We will not be coming back together. So if you are not planning to join the breakout groups, you are free to go at this point. And as a reminder, breakout groups are never recorded. So you can feel comfortable to speak freely, turn your cameras on, and get engaged that way. There will also be a WCI staff member or a few of us were there to help facilitate. So once you get thrown into your breakout group, give us like 30 seconds to get the staff member in there, and we'll help get that conversation rolling. And we are going to let those run for 20 minutes. We want to end right at 7:30 to honor everybody's time tonight. Or I guess I should say, whatever time zone you're in, 7:30 Mountain Time. It's a lot later for some of you. So wrap that up in 20 minutes, and that's it. Sit tight for just a moment. We'll move you guys into your groups. And thank you again. We really appreciate you, and go have some great conversations.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.